The dragon here. Just thought I'd do a little video about the everyday carry items as far as knives go. All of the knives that are shown here are knives that I've carried consistently at one point in time or another. So I'm just going to kind of give you my thoughts and opinions on them, what I like and what I don't like. So I'll start with fixed blades, and then I'll kind of shift through the different various folders that I have. So for probably a good year and a half, I was on a fixed blade EDC kick, and so the first knife I got in that collection was the River Micro Canadian 2. What I definitely liked about this knife was the ergonomics. For a small knife, it feels amazingly good. It has good grip. The slight little grooves for the fingers make it very comfortable over long extended periods of time. This is the 154 cm version. Takes an edge really well, extremely sharp, very durable, does its job exceptionally well. It's under 2 inches, so it falls within California and Los Angeles' limits very easily. But yeah, it's a fantastic knife. If you were thinking about getting this as a small blade for whatever reason, I can highly recommend it. It holds its edge very well for long periods of time, sharpens up very easily. It's just an amazing little cutter. Now, after using this for a long period of time, I did want a little more blade length, but still in a similar package, and that led me to purchase this knife, which is the River PSK. This is a little over 2 inches, so you can see. Now, as much as it's just slightly bigger than the Micro Canadian, for a blade this small, the little bit of extra cutting edge definitely goes a long way. Now, it's a little bit thicker than the Micro Canadian. I don't know if that's coming up on camera, but I just figured I'd show you. Now, what I liked about this knife is that I like the blade profile. I like the height of the blade, and I definitely like the length, the cutting edge of the knife. The things that I found a little less than ideal, due to its thickness, it's a little hard to get as keen of an edge as I'm able to hold with the Micro Canadian. It's more than serviceable, but for just wicked sharp, the Micro Canadian definitely just edges it out. The other thing is the handle slabs, to keep a low profile, are very thin, and they're not rounded very much. And so over long periods of use, I found that if I was taking a deeper grip, it doesn't quite grip as well. If I'm doing just very shallow, it's fine, but even then, I'd probably be benefited by kind of filing this down and making it a little bit more rounded on the edge. Maybe I'll do that at some later time. I'd also say that if I can kind of reprofile this a little bit, it would probably get it a little bit sharper. But both of them are exceptional knives. But between the two, I definitely think the Micro Canadian does take it just by a little bit. I also picked up the Mini Canadian because since I like the ergonomics of this and I like the size of this, I figured that would be a good balance. And it's a nice knife. I don't use it as an EDC. It's a little too big and bulky in my opinion. And I didn't like the front edge of it, but that's for another video. Now, as far as for EDC on these, I've carried both as a neck knife, but what I more often do is I will use the ball chain and loop it through a belt loop, and then just throw the sheath in my pocket. And especially with Micro Canadian, you can't even tell it's there. It's very small, it's unobtrusive. And when I use it in public, the Micro Canadian also went up, because when I pull it out, people aren't intimidated by this knife. It doesn't look menacing, it doesn't look tactical. In fact, more people think that I'm more refined or some other aspect of that I'm an outdoorsman that just appreciates fine craftsmanship, which I am. But because of the blade size and everything, it's not intimidating to people. So that's kind of another benefit of a small knife like this. Now, as far as folders, this first one here Kind of looks like a buck folder, but it isn't. This one's made by Gerber. This one's made in Portland, Oregon. It's not one of the newer ones that was made in China. This was my father's knife. He worked for Pacific Bell, and they gave this to him as a gift. I don't know if the logo comes up, but it's a good solid knife, sharp. I reprofiled and gave the edge a false convex, but it's amazingly sharp. It does very well. It does not have any sort of pocket or belt clip. What it does, it came with this leather belt sheath. I don't use belt sheaths that often, so when I carry it, I usually just carry it in my pocket. But I don't carry this knife that often. As I said, this was my father's knife. He didn't really carry knives. This was just left in his drawer. But since it was his, it holds a lot of sentimental value to me. So I will carry this on occasions where I just want to remember him. So if I'm summiting certain peaks, I carried this one on my wedding day. When I was a kid, I used to actually swipe this knife from his drawer. It as such has a couple dings in it from when I misused it. I didn't really know how to take care of knives at the time, so I pounded on the brass, and so I got a couple dings in it. But it's a great knife, solid lock. It's just a fantastic knife. Any knife that's similar to this, I'm sure, would be equally as good. Very narrow profile. But it's not a quick deploy, which isn't always necessary. It has just a kind of groove for your thumbnail. Good knife though. This one here might be familiar to some people. This is a Boy Scout folding knife. This one is, I believe it's late 60s, early 70s model. It's made by Ulster, USA. It has the knife itself, along with a bottle opener and flathead screwdriver, and a can opener, and an awl. This was a gift from my uncle. He came across it and he knew I like to do backpacking, so he gave me this knife. It came to me with a little bit of rust and wear and tear. I just kind of did a refurbishment, got all the rust off. It's a carbon steel knife. It has a little patina on the handle from when I have used it. I don't EDC this that often. As much as these blades are handy and useful, I usually just carry a knife, just a pocket knife with no extra frills. So as such, I have used this. There's a trail in Southern California called the Silver Moccasin Trail. It's a 52-mile through hike that the Boy Scouts take. So when I went on that, this is the knife I carried. But it doesn't have any sort of belt clip. I think it's around a little over 4 ounces, so it's got a little bit of weight to it. But it's a good knife. If anybody has one, you can ask them. It's a great knife. It's very functional. It takes an edge very easily since it's carbon steel. I also false convex that because I pretty much do that with most of my knives. But I just don't carry this style of knife that often. But when I do, this is pretty much the one I go before my Swiss Army knives or any of the other ones that I have. Moving on, this is the SE Zancudo. By Blue Ridge Knives, I believe. It's made in Taiwan. It uses an AUS-8 steel. It's a frame lock knife. It's very solid in the hand, very comfortable, and with the frame lock, it's far more rugged than it will most likely ever need to be. When I got it, it had a really smooth opening, and over time, it's kind of, you'll see it's a little bit stickier. It doesn't open as easily as when I first got it. It's not a problem for me. I'm not looking for a quick deploy all the time. And it still opens easy enough with one hand, locks up really firm, takes a surprisingly good edge, strops up very well. I didn't intentionally false convex this, but it has it has knocked off a little bit of the shoulder with stropping. But it's a great knife. It holds a great edge. This is my most recent purchase. One of the other great features of this knife is it's only like $30. So for $30 you get a lot of knife. It's very rugged, very secure, and this is my kind of thing to hold me over until SE finally puts out the Azula folder, which has been long awaited by many and will probably arrive hopefully sometime this year, although they've been saying that for the past couple of years. But it is a great knife, works very well, has about a 3-inch blade, give or take. And yeah, fantastic knife. This here is a Spyderco Persistence. This is made in China. It uses an 8CR13 MOV steel. It opens very smoothly, very solid lockup. I like the kind of leaf blade profile of this knife. It gives you good purchase with the jimping where the thumb kind of has a little riser right here. You'll notice I put the zip tie mod on for quick deployment. When you pull it in your pocket, it just snaps out. Comfortable in the hand. I gave this one a false convex, and this one took a false convex very well. It became extremely sharp. It cuts very well, very smooth, doesn't dull very quickly. So for another about $30 knife, this was a great purchase, surprisingly so. I actually bought my friend one, and I liked his so much that I bought one for myself. But it works really well. It's reasonably priced. I don't carry it as often as I started to because it's a pretty hefty knife. I would say it's at least 4 ounces. In the description I'll have all the blades kind of specs and weights kind of laid out. But it's a great knife. This one and most of my folders tend to get the more tactical looks from people. But in the long run, that's their problem, not mine, so I can kind of care less. But it's a great knife. Currently, I keep this in my backpack as a backup knife. Now, this one here is a Benchmade Pardo Designs. I believe the model number is it's either the 155 or 153 or something like that. It'll be listed in the specs. Blade length is about 3 inches, so it's one of the longer fixed blade folding blade lengths that I have. It's even longer than the SE Zancudo. It is a partially serrated blade. The things that are good about this knife: very low profile, and the action on it to fold it out is actually exceptional. I can actually just flip it out without any problems. And it has a solid lock. It uses the access locking system. It has a little bit of jimping, but it really doesn't provide any real traction. It's very comfortable in the hand. I like this sort of coffin style. Exceptionally light. This knife is under 2 ounces. I carried this for backpacking for a long time as my backup backpacking knife, or when I went climbing. It's just very comfortable. I just kind of throw it in the pocket. You don't even know it's there. It's a great knife. It uses 154 cm stainless steel. I haven't quite gotten it as sharp as I usually do lately. It might be something I might have changed my technique a little. But it's a very good knife, especially if you're looking for ultralight knife. This is the lightest knife in this group, I believe, and yet it's still got the longest blade length. And I think you can do some pretty heavy-duty work with this. I wouldn't necessarily be batoning anything with this, but it's got an attractive blade style. And I do carry a couple partially serrated blades, especially when I'm doing a lot of cutting of like rope, twine, cardboard boxes, man-made materials. Serrades do tend to kind of step into their own in that factor. But it's a fantastic knife. I do recommend it highly. And that takes me to this last one. This here is the Benchmade Mini Barrage. The special edition that was carried by REI. It is an assisted opening knife, so it just with a little bit of pressure, it snaps out. Things I like about this knife is I love this blade profile. Even though it's just kind of a subtle drop point, its lines are very clean. Like on all these knives, it has a false convex, and it took a false convex very well. Partially serrated again. This is an Osborne design. Now, because this is a special edition, instead of using 154 cm, it uses S30V steel. Again, it has the access lock. And then it has a secondary lock on the top that you can engage that prevents the access from being pulled, so it will close down if you accidentally pull that back on the access lock. It's very smooth action. It's a little bit weighty. It's probably similar in weight to the Spyderco Persistence here. And when it does engage the automatic assist, you can actually feel it swing out. It's got some heft to it. This is the knife I've been carrying lately. I've been doing a lot of man-made material cutting, and then this secondary lock is great because when I go hiking with my son, or if my son's around me just on everyday work, lately he's been kind of reaching for my knives, and he's only a little over 2.5, so that's definitely not something I like him to do. And if he just randomly got a hold of it for some really out-of-the-way reason, when I'm not using it, I keep the lock engaged, and by doing that, the knife doesn't open. So it gives a little added layer of security so my son doesn't get hurt by grabbing one of my tools. But it's probably something I don't carry quite as often as I would because of the weight, and the look of it is pretty hefty. But that kind of brings me to the second issue I have. With serrated blades, people kind of have their opinion whether they like them or not. I think they have a use for sure, especially with man-made materials. But what I do have a problem with serrations, and these serrations in particular, is that if you'll notice, they're on the left side. So if I'm holding it, the serrate is facing to the left. And the way serrates work is they are scallops cut in, so they're kind of a chisel grind. Now, just imagine if I'm using this knife, I'm right-handed myself, if I'm pushing this way, the serrates are on the bottom, which means that there's going to be a gap, which means my cut is not going to be quite as precise. Now, if I'm cutting up and down, it makes no difference whatsoever. But for any sort of fine detail work, for example, I do occasionally do feather sticking with these knives, although it's kind of a rare thing. It doesn't bite as well because it's not aligned properly. The scallop should be on the right-hand side, so when I'm pushing, this chisel end is flat on the bottom and there's no gap. And this is something I find on most of the serrated knives I've come across. The scallops or the serrates, whatever way they choose to make them, tend to be on the left-hand side. Now, I've seen a couple of companies that make it so it's almost an ambidextrous serrate, but those are kind of like the exception to the rule. And I'm sure right-handed scallops or serrates are available somewhere, but they're not the mainstay. They're not the predominant that I've found on numerous manufacturers. And so, for me, that actually caused me to move away from serrated knives and focus more on straight edge knives, which hasn't been that big of an issue for me. But if I do find a good knife that has serrates that are located on the right hand side, I would probably pick it up in a heartbeat because I think they do have a use, and since they are useful, I like to have them set up in a way that is most ideal for me. So if you're left-handed, know that apparently a lot of serrated knives or partially serrated knives are meant for you. Whether intentional or not, I don't know. But so for me, that's kind of a big drawback of the serrated knives. I find that whenever I find them in store, they tend to be on the left-hand side, which just is, it's not useless for me, but it definitely takes away from its effectiveness for me. With that being said, if I'm to discuss which knives are my favorite from each category, from the fixed blades, it's pretty easy to go to the Micro Canadian. As much as I wish it had a little more blade length, this is such a comfortable knife and such an easy knife to use, and it has very little weight to it. This would be my go-to without a doubt. As far as my folding knives, it's a little more complex. I really do like this, the Benchmade. I find it to be a very comfortable knife. Even though it's not a supremely large knife, it's definitely got enough handle and enough blade length to get almost any task accomplished. It's very lightweight, which is amazing, and its action is just superb. It's just, I mean, Benchmade really makes a quality product. But I also really like the Zancudo. And the Zancudo does have the benefit of, it's only 30 bucks. The Benchmades, both of them are in the $100 or $100 plus range. And so for a third of the price, I get a very robust knife that is very effective. As it's a straight edge, I don't have to worry about where any sort of serrates are on it. The oscillator sharpens up very well. It's comfortable in the hand. It doesn't quite stick past my hand if I do a closed grip comparatively to the other knives, but this one's definitely contention. So it's kind of hard to make a single decision quite easily of my folding knives because they do kind of serve various functions. But currently, I kind of say that the Zancudo is kind of edging out the rest because price versus quality and ease of use. Now, both the Benchmades, when not in everyday use, they go in different backpacks I use. This one usually goes in my lightweight backpacking as my backup knife. This one goes in my kind of short duration trip backup knife because both of them are exceptionally good knives. The Spyderco, since this one's been used as my everyday carry for probably the past 2 to 3 weeks, this is taking its place because it's a great knife. It's very robust. It takes a great spark off of the ferrule rod without having to deploy it and just kind of scrape it down. And it's an exceptionally sharp knife. It does all the tasks you need and more. And again, it's just these go in my short duration day packs because the fact that they do have a little bit of weight to them. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts and opinions. I'm sure I missed something, but I just pretty much talk off the top of my head. I don't really plan what to say. So let me know what you guys think. Are there knives that I don't have here that you think are worthy of mention, that I should take a look at? Is there something in the knives that I've shown that you'd like to discuss? So likes and comments are always appreciated. And yeah, thanks for watching.